The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone. In today's video, we will look at how to plot points on the Cartesian plane. And before we're able to graph any equation or any function, we need to learn the basics of how to plot simple points on the Cartesian or the coordinate plane. It's the words are the same thing. The coordinate plane or the Cartesian plane is simply the space here that you see with two axes, the y-axis, which is the vertical axis, and we always like to keep it a habit to label our axis. So the y-axis is the vertical axis, the horizontal axis is the x-axis. So again, the Cartesian plane is simply the graph paper that you use, drawing two axes, they're perpendicular to each other, the y and the x, that will create your coordinate or Cartesian plane. Now, in order to plot points, we need to understand how that works. Each point have two coordinates, and we give the point two numbers. So the two numbers represent the x and the y coordinates of this point. So in order to plot a point, we have to locate the x and then the y. We're going to do lots of examples in this video about how to do that on the plane, but let's go over the vocabulary before we go over actual problems. Now, x and y with a comma in between and those two parentheses, we call them ordered pairs. So if I have a point 2 and -1, this is an ordered pair or a point. Now 2 is the x coordinate of that point, -1 is the y coordinate of the point. And the point is just a tiny space on that Cartesian plane that has the two coordinates defining that point. Now, if you look at the plane, you will notice that we have four quadrants. A quadrant is like a quarter. So in algebra and trig, if you're going to take trig down the road, we label those quadrants as follows. This quadrant is the first quadrant. The second would be here in the bottom right. The next one is quadrant 3. So that's quadrant 1, 2, and 3, and then quadrant 4. And we use the Roman letters to resemble which number is that quadrant. Now, also, when you look at the two axes, the y and the x-axis, they both intersect at a point that we refer to as the origin. And the origin always has those coordinates or order pairs, 0 and 0, meaning that the x equals to 0, the x coordinates is a 0, that's a 0 for the x and 0 for the y. And we're going to know more how that makes sense when we actually plot some points on the coordinate plane. Now let's actually take actual points and try to plot them on the Cartesian or the coordinate plane. The way it works that we need to determine where is the x coordinate along the x-axis. So we're going to go either left if it's a negative value for x, or right if it's a positive value for x, and then up or down depending if it's a negative y value, it's going to go down, and then if it is a positive value of y, we have to go up. So for example, point A, -3 and -2, remember we said that the order pair has x and y, and this is always the order of the point. X coordinate first and then the y coordinate. How would we plot that point on the coordinate plane? Well, let's find -3 on the x-axis. Since this is the x coordinate, that will take us to -3. So this is -2, so this point should be a -3 on the x-axis. Now we have to go up or down depending on the value of the y coordinate. -2 is a negative, so that means that we have to go down 2 units. So that will make us that will make us plot the point -3 and -2 here. So again, from the origin, on the x-axis, we went 3 units to the left because it's a -3. And then for the y-coordinate, we went 2 units down because it's a -2 for the y-coordinate. That will make us put that point here, remarking this as point A. So this is A, and it's a -3 and -2. Let's do B. Point B, -6 and 5, and we know that's an x coordinate and y coordinate. So first we have to determine, is it a left or right on the x-axis? It's a -6, so that would make us go from the origin here to the -6, meaning 6 units to the left. So this is the x coordinate. This is not our point though, but that will lead us to where the point will be on the coordinate plane. Now 5 is a positive number. 5 for the y, meaning that you have to go 5 units up since it's a positive 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that will make us put that point here and label that this is B, which is -6 and 5. Let's do 2 and 1. Both are positive. So I know in my mind I'll be on the right section of x-axis. And again, the axes y and x, to label them just to remember which one is which. So the x would be to the right because it's a 2, positive 2, and the 1 will make us go up 1 unit. So there is a 2 on the x-axis and then go up 1 unit, and that will make us label this as C, 2, and 1, the ordered pair for that point. D is a 0 and 8. So x is 0 and y is 8. So what does it mean when the x coordinate is just a 0? It means that we're gonna remain at the origin. We're not gonna go left or right. We're just gonna go on the origin, and then whether we're gonna go up or down, that will be determined from the value of the y. Well, the y is 8, positive 8. Then from the origin, because x is 0, we're gonna go 8 units, and that would make us put D, 0, and 8, and that point is right on the y-axis. It's none of the quadrants, so that point does not it's not at any of the quadrants. It's right on the y-axis. Now point E, 4 and -4. So x and y. X is positive, so we're going to go from the origin to the right 4 units here. And then the y is a -4, go down 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that will make us write E is 4 and -4. The last point, F, is 6 and 0. So this time x is a value, but the y is a 0. What should we do? Now, let's find x first. X is 6, that means go to the right 6 units along the x-axis. So this is the 6 on the x-axis. What should we do? Should we go up or down? Well, we're not going to go neither directions because y is 0, meaning that do not go anywhere. The point will be on the x-axis. So this is our point right on the x-axis. It's not on neither of the quadrants. So this is F, and that is 6 and 0. Now the question on the top says, on which section on the plane does each point fall? So basically the question is asking you to determine or name the quadrant that each point falls into. So since we know how to label our quadrants by now, so let's now put the quadrant numbers and then determine which points are in which quadrants, and that's 3, and then that is 4. Okay, now let's look. we have points C and F on quadrant 1. This is within the space of quadrant 1. So C and F, that's quadrant 1 and quadrant 1. I will not count the D as in quadrant 1 or 4 because, again, D is right on the y-axis. Let's go to the next quadrant. We have only E within the second quadrant. Next, the quadrant number 3, we only see an A, so the A would be quadrant number 3. And then 4, we have B. B is the fourth quadrant. And then we have D right on the y-axis, so it's y-axis. And then we have 6 and 0, actually not in quadrant 1, that is the x-axis. So again, because it says 6 and 0, we did not go any units up or down, so it is right on the x-axis. So this is how you determine which sections of the Cartesian plane or the coordinate plane your points are falling into, and this is how we plot the points on the plane. Now let's do the other way around. What if you have a plane and you have certain points are plotted on that plane on the different quadrant and axis of that given plane? Can we define the ordered pair of each plotted points? Well, what we're going to do the other way around. We're going to work backwards. So let's start with point A. So point A here, we need to define what is the x and what is the y coordinates. How do we do that? Go down to the x-axis, and that will mark the -7. So A has a -7 for the x coordinate, and for the y, it meets the 8. So point A has -7 and 8. Okay, and that is obviously which quadrant? That is the fourth quadrant. Let's label them and also make note of which quadrant as we work on each of the points, and that is 3 and that is 4, and that's y, and that is x-axis. Okay, B, the point is right on the y-axis, so I'm expecting either the y or the x coordinate to be a 0. Let's see. So the x is right on the 0, so this point has a 0 for the x, and then we went up 5 units, so it's going to be a +5. So the ordered pair for point B is a 0 and 5, and that does not lie on any of the quadrants, that is right on the y-axis. Number C, do the same thing. If you go down and meet the x-axis, that will give you the x coordinate. So that is 4, 5. So 5 would be the x coordinate. What about the y? The y is positive, and it is +3. Okay, so that is 5 and 3. And now we are able to say, well, this point is quadrant 1. D is this point here. So what is the coordinate of the origin? This is where the y and the x-axis intersects. So that is right away a 0 for the x and the 0 for the y, and that is actually lying on neither of the axes and neither of the quadrants. That is the origin. E on the graph here. So we want to determine the x first. So we have to go up to the x, and that will mark the 7. So that is 7 for the x. And what about the y? It's a -4. So this point E has ordered paired or coordinate as 7 and -4. And from the graph, it is quadrant 2. F, again, determine the x until you meet the x, and that will give you the value of the x coordinate. So that is a -3, and then the y is a -6, and that would be the coordinate of f, -3 and -6, and that is on quadrant 3. G, the last point, which is here on the x-axis, without thinking a lot, y would be a 0 because it seems that we're not going to go up or down. So y would be a 0. What about the x? The x is a -6 because that point lies right on the -6 on the x-axis. So -6 and 0, and that is on neither of the quadrants, that is on the x-axis. Okay, so let's look at the next question. The next question will be a self-check for you. So let's read the question together, and then I will ask you to pause the video, do the question, and you need graph paper for this question, and then you can replay the video and look and compare your answers. Plot the following points on the Cartesian plane, or sometimes, as I said, it's called the coordinate plane. You have your x and y. Let's label the axes. So that's y and that's x. You're given points 1 through A through E, I'm sorry, and you need to plot those points on their correct positions on the Cartesian plane. Okay, let's do the question together. So we have -5 and 5 for point A. So again, we determine where the -5 on the x-axis first, and that is the -5. And then it says 5 for the y, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that will make A this point. A is -5 and 5. B, 9 and -1. 9 would be to the right of the x-axis because it's a positive value, and then you go down 1 point. And simply write the coordinates 9 and -1. C, that was the B. C, 0 and 6. Well, x is 0, so we're going to start at the origin and then go up 6 units, and that will make us label this point as C, 0 and 6. 4 and 0. So 4, we start with the x-axis always. The first number is the x coordinate, so 4 is here, and do not go up or down. So it's right on the x-axis, that is D. It is 4 and 0. E, -8 and -4. -8. So we went to the left of the x-axis because it said -8, and then go down 4 units because it said -4. So that is here with label E as -8 and -4. Next question. Okay, again, there is a practice question. So we'll read the question, see what is asked for us to do, and then you can pause the video, do the question, and then compare your answer later. Write the order pair of each of the following points. So now it's the other way around. You have points plotted on the Cartesian plane, and you need to determine the order pair or the coordinates of that point, the x and the y coordinates. Okay, let's do the question together. So again, A is plotted on the plane. So we need to determine the x coordinate. Go down towards the x. It's a -8 for the x. And the y is a -5. I'm sorry, a +5. It's up. So that is positive. So that is -8 and 5. Okay, number B, it's on the y-axis. So 0 and 4 would be the answer for that. C, the x is 9. So that is the 9. And the y coordinate is the 4. So that point is 9 and 4. We have D. D is on the x-axis. It is the -1 and 0. -1 and 0 for the y because we didn't go up or down. And then E is 1, 1, and 1 here, and -6. So that is the 1 and -6. So 1 on the x-axis and then go down 6 points, and that will give us the 1 and -6 as the order pair. So as you see here, it is not a difficult topic, but we need to do it in order. We need to organize our thinking whenever we are plotting points on the coordinate plane or writing the order pair for the given points. If you have questions on this topic, you're welcome to email, chat, or schedule an appointment with one of the instructors or teacher assistants using this link. Thank you and good luck.